Leanne, would you like to? Yeah, it's in here.
Right, through you, Mr. Chair. I didn't actually receive any feedback on the code of conduct whatsoever, so all I've presented there is the two versions, and basically just if following the discussion there's a decision from council to adopt one or the other or a combination of the two, just willing to take your recommendation, whatever you would like to choose.
We have option 1 and 2, do we?
Well,
And no feedback.
Mr. Chairman, at the meeting, I did suggest that under the role of Chief Executive, that an important role is not mentioned there, and that is providing advice to the council and its members. I mean, the Chief Executive is the Chief Advisor to the council.
Yes, 4.2 is
Yeah.
Which one is that? Is that in there, 4.2? Is that an amended one?
Well, well, there's no amended one.
No, it hasn't been amended, but I did raise that at the meeting when we first discussed this, or workshop, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I do. There's just some confusion here. Okay, is there any conversation around the code of conduct? Is Councillor Dix added his one thing into 4.2?
So it was set, is that the old set or the new set?
The new set.
Well, I would just say if you're going to adopt the new set, I would take the last bullet point out in 6. Page, what is it, page 71? Yeah.
71?
No, not disrespecting on our good friends in the Fourth Estate. What we're trying to say here is that comments should not be misleading. It's not before today that people have made comments in the way, the context in which it's set out. People read it quite differently. The point is that when you make a comment, you've lost control of it in the way in which it's presented in the media. And this is implying that the person has to have control of what how the media represents the point of view. I just think it's,
Yeah, we don't have control of.
Yeah. I just
Not
think
that we've ever been
I think that point is
voted in the
made
media.
somewhere open, that people are to be open, honest, direct, courteous, fair, whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
The general point is, and you can't be held responsible for the way in which it's presented.
No, is everyone happy that that's taken out?
Which one is it?
So it's the
The last
last
bullet.
point. It is basically media comments must not be misleading and should be accurate within the bounds of reasonableness. Though you don't have any control once you're chatting to me. You don't have any control of what they say.
No, but it refers to the notice on the commentator did not make misleading.
But they may not, and all of a sudden it turns up in the press or...
I think it's a responsibility on us all.
Well,
I'd rather have
well, sometimes people say things which they think are completely true, and I think they're misleading. So what one person's truth is quite often different from someone else's. This is an argument which is impossible. Second thing is, you're going to be judging it on the basis of what the person actually said or how it was presented. This seems to imply that it's based on the way in which it's presented in the media. Well, that might be a different thing altogether.
I'm gonna go.
I'm sorry, I can't get excited about this. Whether this is in or not, it's not going to change what people will say.
That's true.
But I thought
Never.
aiming for a target which is impossible.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. We're not going to die in the ditch on it. Okay. He's conceded on that one. Do we have a move to accept the code of conduct, the new version with the one change that was? Yeah. You're happy to move, Alan? Second up. Second up. Councillor, you wish to speak?
No, it's all good, and let's hope that we all read it, understand it, and comply with it for the next 3 years. I'll do my best.
You're doing your best. Oh, good on you. So am I. Oh yes.
I just was wondering whether the code did reference wearing of certain ties and whether Councillor Bevans would get over the line to that.
I have some sympathy with that. Suggest that's sort of blinding me. Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. Unanimously. Item 10, the schedule. Oh, well, not really. The schedule, as you all had a copy of that. I don't know where I'll put mine now, but
It's on the agenda, A3.
yeah, no, I ripped it out and so I could put it in my diary. Okay, you all have the schedule, and I know these are really hard to do. A lot of work goes into it, but you're never going to get it right for everybody. The one big change is the regional planning committee, and I think that's a very good change. Otherwise, there's no other changes, Liz, is there?
Correct. There are some minor changes, I think, to the timing for the corporate and strategic meeting, which used to alternate monthly with the environment and services, but has now been altered to occur quarterly and to align with the finance, audit and risk subcommittee meetings. But those would be the only changes of any significance, Mr. Chair.
Okay, right. Round the traps.
I had taken the time to go through this, and what I would like to do is to try and avoid having meetings drop out of the sky on us like we had last year. And what I'd like to do is that each Wednesday, which hasn't got a time slot attached to it, for example, the 8th of March, the 22nd of March, each of those be identified as potential dates for whatever it is, the words seminars and things and so on, and that council staff be advised that those are the dates they're going to use for if it comes up, not just pick a Thursday or a Tuesday, so that people know that these dates are available and they have to pick on one and work their planning back for that. So we're clear, Wednesdays are council days and we're not going to be randomness about it.
Yeah, no, I like that suggestion. Wednesdays is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays is quite good. Now, who'd we have? Oh, we might take you, Deborah, while we're
Just
chatting.
along the same lines, I noticed there are no workshops, no field trips. So is there a commitment that we mark out the Wednesdays now?
So I think that was Councillor Barker's
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah.
It's my
Is
take
that-
is that
yeah.
Wednesdays, the non-utilised Wednesdays, are the days prioritised for that.
So we know that Wednesday is a day.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
There will be field trips. I just think that we haven't got around and said what do we want to do yet, but we certainly want to. Yeah. Tom.
There are a couple of items here that are noted as, for example, May 3rd, planning/tank, and then there's July 26th, council/tank. Is that just indicating there's an overlap of scheduled meetings at that point? Because the tank meetings are all-day meetings, so if one is participating in tank, it would mean they would be absent from either the planning committee meeting on May 3rd or the council meeting on the 26th.
If councillors were inclined to want us to relook at the tank dates, we can certainly go back and check. They are quite some time out, and to the best of my knowledge, they haven't been absolutely cast in stone with the tank group members, and I think there would be a willingness to shift them to accommodate councillors to attend. So
Right, I'd
happy
ask
to
that we
take.
look into that.
Yep, happy to do so.
Any other comment?
I'll move it.
Thank you. We have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Tom. Do you wish to speak? You've had your little say about Wednesdays. Okay, no other speakers will move. We accept the meeting schedule as proposed. I guess it will change and move a little bit on us as we go through. All those in favour? Against? It's passed. Recommendations from the Regional Planning Committee. We don't have our co-chair, so I will do this. I thought we had a very good meeting, the Regional Planning meeting. The big discussion point was, of course, the oil and gas, and there's been quite a lot of media activity around that. That was well accepted by the meeting and passed by the meeting, that we propose a prohibition for oil and gas in around our aquifers and in our water body catchments. So that was a big one. Water conservation application, that was also a really interesting debate, because there's a few conflicted views on that, but a really good discussion around that. Tenant offender representation on, we confirmed that on our standing meetings. As an adjunct, I met tenant offender group yesterday, and that is an issue that's quite hot with them. We received a whole lot of verbal reports, which I won't go into, except to say that really interesting reports on Tutera and Ahuriri, which were all a bit scary, but most of you were here, so most of you saw that. So that was the regional planning meeting, and the recommendation is that you receive it.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could make a further recommendation, and I'm calling it recommendation 10B, and it's in relation to the request for staff to prepare a report in terms of the Ahuriri Estuary report. And that additional recommendation from me at this point, Mr. Chair, is that staff prepare a communications and stakeholder engagement plan in conjunction with the report. And I wonder whether Mrs. Lambert could just comment on any plans she might have for engagement in relation to that particular plan and others.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the particular case of the Ahuriri, first of all, I support that idea. One of the things that we have discussed as part of our wider communication strategy is that we prepare very good technical reports, and we need to be able to have a mechanism that can put them out to the public in a way that the public enjoy reading them. And I think, for example, one example that always springs to mind to me is our monthly State of the Environment report that Dr. Kosniak prepares, and she does that in a very friendly and chatty kind of style, but still gets the information across. And so we're, looking to emulate that with perhaps some of our more important scientific reports, and have a like that. In terms of the stakeholder engagement, I think it's clear stakeholders for the Ahuriri Estuary would be the likes of Napier City Council, would certainly be Mana Ahuriri, given their now statutory role with a committee as part of their treaty settlement legislation, residential areas in the vicinity of the estuary. But you're going back to Napier City Council as an important contributor to our water quality in the estuary.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that into here if you want that added into, yeah. Okay,
Calling it 10B.
10.1.
is there any other comment on the regional planning?
Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, towards the end of this meeting, it was this meeting, wasn't it? Or was it the other informal meeting? You made the novel suggestion that this chamber should hang 10 portraits of Te Puna representing the various treaty claim entities who are on the committee. As I say, it's a novel idea, but I think it needs some discussion at some stage by council. Clearly it will have financial implications as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I have actually asked staff to find someone who would prepare the appropriate report on that and do the costings around it, and so that it could come back to council.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Yes, Debbie? Sorry. Yes, certainly. Yeah, you certainly.
Will you take number 2 separately? The voting?
No, I won't. I'm sorry. I wouldn't. If you wish to raise it at another time, but that was what was agreed.
Will you take the recommendations of asking you to vote on
No. Unless there's a lot of support for that. I wouldn't want to be accused of being a dictator.
Can't see any harm, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will take it separately. Okay, do we have a move of the recommendations apart from recommendation number 2, which is the oil and gas one?
We can move and second the whole lot and then just vote on them separately.
Okay, we're moving second the whole lot, mover for the whole lot and a second for the whole lot, and then we'll vote on them separately. We'll vote on 2 separately. Do we have a mover? Councillor Bailey, a seconder. Bevan, do you wish to speak? Councillor Bailey? Do you wish to, no, do you want to speak? Do you wish to speak? Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes?
So, sorry, Mr. Chair, just a point of order in terms of my suggested amendment to, has that been accepted?
Yes. Yeah, we have included that. Oh, there was no objection to that. We're going to include that.
Okay.
So including the amendment that we report back on the Ahuriri estuary. So we have a mover and a seconder. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. We had a reasonably constructive day on last Wednesday with the Regional Planning Committee. The area that I am speaking in concern to is with regard to the proposed plan change for oil and gas exploration, and I note that we agreed to progress this. I'd like to express some concerns about the way that we came to this position. At the outset of the meeting of this agenda item, the RPC members, the Tangata Whenua members, were asked to state their position, and this was in advance of the opportunity for staff to be positioning any potential discussion or any clarification of questions. I'll note that the majority of those members, as I heard it, were saying that they had not had the opportunity to consult with their people. So I would have thought that, given that point and the fact that the staff have said under the briefing paper that there was no pressure from the oil and gas industry to be progressing activities of this nature, that I didn't see the urgent need to be spending $150,000 of ratepayers' money with haste. I saw other options, so I will be voting against proposed plan change for oil and gas exploration activities progressing as per agenda item 2.
Do we have any speakers on that? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I too will vote against that, just on the basis that, as was discussed on that day, there's probably more pressing energy-related items we could invest in at the moment. I see we have a discussion on electric vehicles at the end of the day as an example. Maybe we should be doing our bit to provide charging access or whatever at the building here, and on that basis, let's add in a whole lot of other things, solar, heating, etc. I just think that the money, a limited amount of money, could be better spent.
Are there any other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm a little surprised at the contention that this is money for expenditure on the oil and gas plan change initiative. That these are funds that should not be spent on behalf of the ratepayer, when in fact it was my recollection from the paper presented by staff that a provision was in the annual plan for that purpose.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, I didn't say they shouldn't be spent.
Well, I certainly heard Councillor Hewitt reference the expenditure of funds on behalf of the ratepayer. So I'm, as an incoming councillor, I had assumed that a previous and prior discussion had taken place by council with the appropriate approval of funds for that purpose. So I'm a little perplexed in catching up with the plan. I can't recall specifically my own reading of the plan in June around this issue, so it comes as a surprise that there hasn't been good deliberation on that type of expenditure already. Having said that, Mr. Chair, I'm somewhat perplexed also that we would not spend money in this regard to clarify an issue which is of very significant concern to the public of Hawke's Bay, and is of such consequence to our greatest taonga, which is our water. So I'm surprised that we're not making haste with this issue, and in many others in regard to protecting our aquifers.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers on this issue? Therefore, I wish to. Since I've been in this council, I've never had a more positive reaction from the community than I have over this issue. Never. People come up to me in the streets and say, well done. Admittedly, I do say that I was quite interested that some of the talented whenua around the table had not discussed it with their hapu or iwi, but in the end, they all came to the same conclusion. I met with a group of hapu iwi, a large group, yesterday, and they were ecstatic about this. So I would be really personally upset, is a good word, if we overturned this decision. I think it is a real move forward, leading edge in New Zealand, and who would not want to protect our aquifers and our water bodies from the risk of oil exploration? That would be my question. But I want to take no more discussion on this. I want to take a vote on point 2 of the recommendations. All those in favour of keeping it as is in the recommendation? Aye. And against? And do you want to be recorded? For, all those for? And against? We'll record that. So we'll therefore now take a vote on the recommendations as a whole, including 2, to accept this paper on a whole. All those in favour? Aye. All against? The paper is received. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, just in terms of your comment, overturn recommendations, could that be explained by staff, the procedure for so-called overturning resolutions from the regional board?
A really interesting question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'll take that last example of recommendation 2 as an example. If the vote had been not to accept that, because it is an issue that is directly related to a planned development process, it would have had to be referred back to the Regional Planning Committee. Rather than simply declined, it would have had to go back for further discussion, potentially some refinement, and then come back to the council once again. So it cannot just be a recommendation from the Regional Planning Committee and then overruled, in a sense, by council.
Leanne, you've got Alan Smith's name spelt wrong. He's a A-L-L-E-N, I believe.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
Just wondering whether you did.
Okay, we're going to move. We're going to cup of tea in 10 minutes. We're going to move to item 12 and get it through quickly. Now, item 12 is related to additional appointments. So, Liz, can you just take us, or Andrew, just quickly?
Yeah, let's just you do it very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, I'm cutting to the chase. The principle of the Regional Planning Committee is equal representation, so equal number of councillors, equal number of tangata whenua members. As the legislation to establish this committee was put through the House, one of the 9 claimant groups successfully, that's Hei Toa Takatini, successfully argued for 2 representatives around the committee for a number of reasons, but which we agreed with. So that took the number of tangata whenua members up to 10 if Tūhoi were to take up the availability of their seat. They have now done that with Para Hill representing them. So they are now effectively a membership of 10, and the legislation provides for this council to make an appointment of clearly a non-councillor, because there are only 9 of you, to make it up to 10. So this paper looks at a number of options for how you can do that. What we're essentially saying is you have time to do this, so let's take your time, but what we would like from, what staff would like, is some clear direction from you in terms of either option A or option B or option C for the process of appointment. Option A, we would be looking for expressions of interest. Option B, we would be looking for a more refined role-based selection. Option C, which we don't actually think is feasible, is the next highest polling council candidate. And the reason we don't think that's feasible is because there's, how do you determine that? Because
and who was that?
I have no idea. But more importantly, well, because which constituency do you want to go to? Yeah. So the reason why we say we're not in a huge hurry, but we want to get the process going, we've got to get the terms of reference finalised for the Regional Planning Committee. That was discussed last week at the RPC. And you're aware that it's coming back to you early next year once it's been out to the tangata whenua, have taken it out to their respective interests. So we want to get our part of the ball rolling, and we would welcome your decision on which process should be undertaken. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that quick enough?
That's quick enough.
A question, because I don't understand. The appointment of the 10th person is an obligation or an option for us?
It's an obligation because the principle is
equal
representation.
And the Maoris are more equal than us at the moment. We haven't had that for 200 years, so we can't have that, can we, Mr. Moore? He got no answer.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I seem to recall a suggestion coming from some quarter, which seemed very elegant and straightforward, and that would be that Mr. Mahi be appointed number 10, representing the council. Is there in any case?
Yeah, okay. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, just a question, Mr. Chair. Point 9, there's the list of skills that staff consider. Just to confirm that they're nice to haves rather than must haves.
That's correct. It's to give you some parameters around which, you know, you could, if you are faced with a choice of candidates, what you could be looking for. Yeah.
Councillor Barker?
Question, what is happening with the suggestion of the elegant Mr Morphy being...
Well, do we ask him to leave the room, or shall we talk about him when he's here? That's...
Mr Chairman, he could go out into the foyer and watch it on TV.
Are there any other... so that's an option, that becomes option 4.
He probably needs to, he would need, if you make it option 4, Chairman, I think Mr Moore, he needs to state his position. It's whether he wants to accept the nomination.
Well, after the Chicago game, I'm mainly Irish anyway, so...
Is there anyone who wants to support one of these other options? Like the expression of interest option caught my eye, not that I'm not saying I don't favour or do or not the elegant solution. Yes, Tom.
I'm for the simplest option, which is A, and I would move the recommendations 1, 2 to be A, and 3.
Do we have a seconder? You will second that. Do you wish to speak on that? Do you wish to speak? Is there any other speakers on that? So what we're saying is that that we go, we consider expressions of interest. So you go out into the marketplace. It takes a lot longer than your elegant solution, but it's quite democratic. Is that your point?
Yeah,
Councillor, you wish to speak?
I'm wondering how to progress this, because I actually supported Mr Mohi being put in the position.
So then you would oppose this then? Yeah. So, well, okay, if there's no more speakers, I will put the
The only reason I proposed this was because I didn't hear from Mr. Moe that he wanted the position. We didn't conclude the conversation.
Speak up,
So
Moe. Come on, speak up.
if he speaks up and says he likes the job, we can just conclude the matter today and move on.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you would like me to do it, I would accept the position. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, I will move from the chair that we nominate Mr. Mohi to represent, appoint Mr. Mohi to represent our 10th position on the Regional Planning Committee. As an Irishman, yeah.
I'll second that.
And second by Councillor Barker. Is there anybody, any comment, or should we move straight to it?
Well, Mr Chair, I wonder whether we should consider his attributes according to item 9 here.
No, I want his whakapapa, Irish whakapapa. All those in favour? Or against? It's carried. Mr. Moy, is it? We might break for a cup of tea. I'm not sure which clock I'm looking at.
No, look at that one over there.
That one.
That's Central Hawke's Bay time behind us, Chair.
Okay, we'll break for a cup of tea.